Some anime protagonists get judged way too quickly. Weak skills, low status, weird personalities, or powers nobody understands. But the people around them have no idea they're actually dealing with monsters. Whether they were betrayed, ignored, or treated like nobodies, these MCs eventually prove that underestimating them is the biggest mistake anyone can make. In this video, we're counting down 7 Isekai anime, where everyone underestimates the MC, and trust me, the higher we go, the more satisfying these power reveals become. So let's get started. At number 7, we have Campfire Cooking in Another World, with my absurd skill, and this anime gives us one of the most unexpectedly overpowered protagonists in Isekai. The story follows Mukoda, a normal guy summoned to another world alongside actual heroes. But unlike them, he receives what seems to be a completely useless skill, the ability to order modern food products online. Because of that, everyone immediately underestimates him and sees him as unimportant compared to the other summoned heroes. But what makes this anime stand out is how his useless skill slowly becomes unbelievably broken, because the food he creates attracts legendary monsters and gives insane buffs to anyone who eats it. And before long, Mukoda ends up traveling alongside absurdly powerful creatures that protect him from basically any danger. At the same time, the anime mixes fantasy adventure, comedy, relaxing slice-of-life moments, and surprisingly satisfying power fantasy elements in a really unique way. And while most people continue seeing him as an ordinary merchant-like traveler, they have no idea he's secretly connected to monsters powerful enough to destroy entire armies. Between the underestimated MC, unexpectedly broken ability, and the hilarious contrast between cooking and overpowered fantasy chaos, Campfire Cooking in Another World with my absurd skill easily earns the number 7 spot on this list. At number 6, we have The Rising of the Shield Hero, and this anime is basically built around the entire world underestimating and rejecting the MC. The story follows Naofumi, a normal guy summoned to another world as the Shield Hero, only to be betrayed almost immediately and treated like a criminal by everyone around him. Because his weapon is considered the weakest among the legendary heroes, people constantly mock him and assume he'll never become truly powerful. But what makes this anime stand out is how Naofumi slowly transforms that hatred and rejection into strength through hard work, strategy, and pure determination. And as he gains stronger abilities and loyal companions like Raftalia, he eventually becomes powerful enough to handle threats the other heroes can't even survive against. At the same time, the anime mixes revenge, fantasy adventure, emotional growth, and overpowered progression in a way that makes every victory feel incredibly satisfying. And because the same people who once looked down on him later witnessed just how unstoppable he became, the payoff feels even better. Between the constant disrespect, powerful character development, and the underestimated MC rising above everyone else, The Rising of the Shield Hero easily earns the number 6 spot on this list. At number 5, we have Arifureta, From Commonplace to World's Strongest, and this anime gives us one of the most brutal examples of an MC being underestimated before becoming completely unstoppable. The story follows Hajime, an ordinary student summoned to another world alongside his classmates, but unlike the others, he receives what seems to be a weak and useless ability. Because of that, everyone immediately sees him as the weakest member of the group, and someone who will only slow everyone down. But after being betrayed and abandoned inside a deadly dungeon, Hajime is forced to survive alone against impossible monsters and non-stop suffering. What makes this anime stand out is how drastically he changes, because the weak and timid boy everyone looked down on slowly transforms into a ruthless powerhouse, capable of destroying enemies effortlessly. And when Hajime finally reunites with the people who underestimated him, the difference between his old self and his new overwhelming power becomes absolutely insane. At the same time, the anime mixes revenge, overpowered action, fantasy adventure, and harem elements in a way that fully embraces the power fantasy experience. Between the betrayal, insane glow-up, and the MC proving everyone wrong in the most brutal way possible, Arifureta easily earns the number 5 spot on this list. At number 4, we have Wise Man's Grandchild, and this anime gives us an MC who gets underestimated simply because he acts way too normal for someone with godlike power. The story follows Shin, a boy reincarnated into a fantasy world and raised by one of the greatest mages alive. Because he grows up isolated from society, Shin learns insanely advanced magic without realizing how broken his abilities actually are compared to everyone else. What makes this anime stand out is how casually Shin performs impossible feats while the people around him slowly realize he's operating on a completely different level. And since he acts humble and innocent most of the time, enemies constantly underestimate him before getting completely overwhelmed by his absurd magic. At the same time, the anime mixes fantasy action, school life, comedy, romance, and overpowered battles in a way that makes every episode entertaining and satisfying. And because Shin genuinely doesn't understand how terrifying his strength looks to normal people, the reactions from everyone around him make his overpowered moments even better. Between the ridiculous magic, underestimated genius energy, and the MC casually proving everyone wrong, Wise Man's Grandchild easily earns the number 4 spot on this list. At number 3, we have Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy, and this anime gives us an MC who gets underestimated by literally everyone, including a goddess. The story follows Makoto, a normal student summoned to another world, only to be instantly rejected and insulted by the goddess because she thinks he's ugly. Instead of becoming a hero, he gets abandoned at the edge of the world, far away from human civilization. But what makes this anime stand out is how insanely powerful Makoto becomes after surviving on his own, because before long he develops abilities strong enough to terrify legendary monsters and overpower entire armies. And despite possessing godlike strength, Makoto usually acts calm, humble, and surprisingly friendly, which causes people to constantly misjudge him at first. At the same time, the anime perfectly mixes fantasy adventure, comedy overpowered fights, and kingdom-building elements in a way that makes every arc entertaining and satisfying. And whenever enemies finally realize how dangerous Makoto truly is, it's already far too late for them to do anything about it. Between the constant underestimation, absurd hidden power, and the MC proving everyone wrong again and again, Tsukimichi easily earns the number 3 spot on this list. At number 2, we have The Eminence in Shadow. And this anime might be the ultimate example of an MC being constantly underestimated while secretly controlling everything from the shadows. The story follows Sid, a guy obsessed with acting like a background character during the day, while secretly becoming an all-powerful mastermind at night. What makes this anime stand out is how perfectly Sid hides his true abilities, because almost everyone sees him as just another random and forgettable student. But in reality, he possesses power so absurd that he can destroy entire armies effortlessly and manipulate events across the world without anyone realizing it. And because Sid intentionally acts weak and unimportant most of the time, the moments where he finally reveals even a fraction of his true strength become absolutely insane. At the same time, the anime perfectly mixes overpowered action, comedy, fantasy, and harem elements in a way that makes every episode feel chaotic and entertaining. And while enemies constantly believe they're dealing with an ordinary person, they eventually realize they've been standing in front of the strongest monster in the world the entire time. Between the hidden power, legendary shadow persona, and the MC constantly making everyone underestimate him on purpose, The Eminence in Shadow easily earns the number 2 spot on this list. At number 1, we have The Misfit of Demon King Academy. And honestly, no anime does the everyone underestimates the MC concept better than this one. The story follows Anos Voldegode, the legendary demon king who reincarnates thousands of years after sacrificing himself for peace, only to discover that history has completely forgotten who he really is. Because of that, people constantly doubt him, mock him, and refuse to believe he's the true demon king despite the overwhelming aura surrounding him. But what makes this anime stand out is how ridiculously unfair Anos' power actually is, because he casually destroys enemies with a heartbeat, revives people effortlessly, and completely ignores the normal rules of magic. And every time someone underestimates him, the result is usually instant humiliation. At the same time, the anime perfectly mixes fantasy action, comedy, overpowered moments, and harem elements in a way that makes every power reveal feel incredibly satisfying. And because Anos stays calm and confident no matter what happens, it becomes even more entertaining watching arrogant enemies slowly realize how hopelessly outmatched they are. Between the constant disrespect, impossible power level, and the MC proving everyone wrong over and over again, The Misfit of Demon King Academy absolutely deserves the number 1 spot on this list. And that was 7 isekai anime where everyone underestimates the MC. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe for more anime tops like this, and let me know in the comments which protagonist had the best revenge, or which anime had the most satisfying moment of everyone realizing how broken the MC really was, because the next top is going to be even crazier.